Hello everyone, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Keisha and today I'm going to be talking about all the books that I read in the month of November. So it is a bit of a gloomy, stormy day, but today's the only day I have to film. So if the lighting's a little bit weird, if you hear things in the background, usually you probably hear like some cars and stuff anyways, but there might be a thunderstorm in the background today. We're just gonna wing it and go with it because I am so excited to talk to you guys about the books that I read in November. Let's just go ahead and get started. The first book that I want to talk about, or the first few books that I want to talk about, I'm gonna go ahead and do like the middle grade books that I read, and then we're gonna get into the adult books. So the first book that I read was a reread for me. It's The House with Chicken Legs by Sophie Anderson. And I reread this with my middle grade book club, the Booklights, and they all surprisingly, okay, let me tell you. Back up. This book is about Marinka. It's a Baba Yaga retelling. Marinka is Baba Yaga's granddaughter, and she wants nothing more than to be a normal girl, to have normal friends who are alive, not dead. And Baba Yaga, her grandmother, is like kind of a, what do you call it? She guides spirits between this world to the next, and she is training Marinka to do the same, but Marinka just wants to be a free girl, to choose what she does when she grows up, etc., etc. So this book I gave 5 stars last year when I read it. This year I gave it 4 stars because Marinka got on my nerves a lot more this year. And surprisingly, I thought my kids were absolutely gonna love this book. And they didn't hate it, but they didn't love it as much. A lot of them rated this about 3 stars. Some of them gave it 4. I think they were being generous. We did have a couple of 5 stars, but overall they didn't like this as much. So I will say that for those of you who are picking books for your kids, my 8 to 12-year-olds did not like this as much as I thought they would. They said there wasn't as much that went on, and I could totally understand this. It sets it up kind of like an adventurous story, but it is kind of very like slow going. There's not a lot of action. There's not a lot moving constantly throughout the book. So maybe that's what it was. But I did lower my rating to 4 stars. But a lot of that is just because the character development with Marinka just was not there until the very end. And I got to see a little bit more character development with characters like Marinka who are a little bit stubborn as 12-year-olds. So that was my reread. Then I picked up Carrie and the Night of the Forest by Andy Watson. This is a graphic novel that I was just intrigued by because it's a graphic novel and it looked interesting. That's about all that I need to be interested in a book. So I love graphic novels. I love reading these between heavier reads, and Carrie and the Night of the Forest was a pretty good one. I ended up giving it 2 stars. It's about Carrie, and Carrie gets lost in this enchanted forest, and he is trying to find the Knight of the Forest in order for the knight to lead him out of the forest and away from danger. But Carrie has some medicine that he is trying to take to his sick mother, I believe. And so he's trying to keep that with him and get out of the forest, all that stuff. I thought that this book was okay. I didn't think it did anything different than other books. I didn't think it was the best book that I ever read. The illustration style is not my favorite, which I knew that going in, but I thought sometimes the illustration styles aren't my favorite, but I still really enjoy the story. I just thought this one was okay. I do think kids would enjoy this. I think it's a good read. I think it's a good story. I just think for me, it wasn't anything special. So I hate to say that. Like, I don't want to sound mean when I say that. It just wasn't for me. But I do think a lot of kids would enjoy this. So that is Carrie and the Night of the Forest. Then on a lighter note, I read, well, not really lighter, it's actually dark, but The Sleepover by Mike Regina, I believe was the author's name. This book was very, very good. I gave it 4 stars, and it is about this boy who is experiencing grief. His nanny has just died, and his nanny was basically like another mom to him, was someone who was very close to him, and he is having to go through possibly getting a new nanny and just having that loss in his life. So his friends decide that they want to have a sleepover and try to help him. You know, they can't really make things better, but they at least want to maybe help him just have a good time and move on from this. So they want to have this sleepover, and a new nanny comes in the picture, and the boys start to think that this nanny is a monster. So This is a good book. It's very good for spooky season. I would highly recommend like reading it around spooky season. If you like graphic novels, I think read it any time of year. It's just a really good book. The illustrations were really good. The story was really good. I loved the exploration of grief. And on top of that, it was just super creepy. It's been said to be similar to, like, if you like Stranger Things, you might like this. I didn't really get Stranger Things vibes from it, but I did still really enjoy it and thought it was super good. So if you like creepy graphic novels and also explorations of grief, definitely check this one out. The next book that I read was City of Secrets by Victoria Ying. This is the first book. It's a graphic novel and it's the first in a series. I think there's a second book out, and it follows this orphan boy, a spunky girl, and a secret hidden in an amazing puzzle box of a building. The combination could save the whole city. If you like steampunk, I think you would probably like this book. It also reminds me of something else, but I can't remember what it is. This says it's a unique Ghibli-esque city that reveals some of its many mysteries through an action-packed adventure. So I didn't really get Studio Ghibli or Ghibli vibes from this, but maybe you will. I liked the art style. I thought the story was really good. Overall, I gave it a 3-star because it was good, but it wasn't amazing. It wasn't anything, I don't know, it did remind me of something. I wish I could remember what it reminded me of, but it was really neat to see kind of like the puzzles and the mechanisms, and I don't know, it's very steampunk. So if you like steampunk, definitely check out this graphic novel. Like I said, I gave it 3 stars. I thought it was good, and I think a lot of you and a lot of kids will probably really enjoy this. The next book that I read was Treasure in the Lake, and this was a really cool story. I gave it, I think, 4 stars. It's basically like, think Atlantis. There's a lost city that gets uncovered, but maybe not as big as Atlantis. But these kids go out exploring. There's some underlying things going on as well with their friendship, but you see them uncover this lost city and figure out what happened. And I don't know, it's pretty basic, but it was also just so adventurous and so cool. So I think if you like the whole lost city, uncovering secrets, treasure, backstory, history behind things, because there are some mentions of some lost cities in this book at the end. There are like real life accounts of different lost cities. I think that's really cool. So I definitely think you would like this. It's a really quick read. I really enjoy the illustrations and the art style as well. So I would highly recommend Treasure in the Lake. I actually hope to own this one someday because I thought it was really good, and I think it would be one that I would love to share with my kids. Okay, now we're going to get into the adult or young adult books. So I do have a couple of young adult books. The first one is All I Want for Christmas by Wendy Logia, or Logia. I'm not quite sure how to say her last name. But I picked this up because my friend Ashley from the Bent Biblios podcast had read this last year. She was rereading it this year, and I believe that Wendy is going to be on one of their podcast episodes later this month, so be on the lookout for that. But this is a really sweet story. If you are someone who wants a good Christmas story that is really sweet and fluffy but not smutty, pick this up, because this is a young adult book. It's about Bailey Briggs. She is counting down the days to Christmas. She lives for holiday music, baking cookies, going on snowy sleigh rides, and wearing her light-up reindeer ears to work at Winslow's bookstore. So she has what I feel like is a great life. She loves Christmas. She works at a bookstore. She is still in high school. This is young adult, but I just think that's fantastic. And she really wants to be kissed under the mistletoe this Christmas. She doesn't think that it's going to be with Jacob Marley. LOL, Jacob Marley. Yes, it's in reference to Christmas Carol. You will get some references to that throughout. She does not think it's going to be with Jacob Marley. Jacob Marley is an athlete, a player, and of questionable taste in girlfriends. She does think that kiss will be with this British accent stranger guy named, that was a terrible way to say a sentence, with Charlie, a mysterious stranger with a British accent. Who's she going to kiss under the mistletoe? I feel like it's kind of obvious from the synopsis how this is going to go, but it was such a sweet ride. It was such a sweet story. It was very fluffy. Bailey did get on my nerves quite a bit throughout the story. She's a little bit of an annoying character, but overall, I thought this was really sweet. It's very short. I think if you're looking for a good, fluffy, non-smutty holiday romance, this would be a good one to pick up this year. The next young adult book that I read was You've Reached Sam by Dustin Thau, and I loved this. I was highly anticipating this all year. The cover of this is absolutely beautiful. Even under the dust jacket, there are Japanese cherry blossoms, and I think it's absolutely beautiful. But I don't read a lot of Asian literature, and I am so glad that I picked this up because I definitely want to read more. I thought this was really good, and I'm glad to have read something with Asian representation and culture. And so I loved this, not only because of that, but because it explored grief, which I feel like for some reason I picked up a lot of books this, I was gonna say semester, like I'm in school, this month, that I just really felt like were about grief or loss. And I think that's really weird that I just somehow ended up with a lot of those, but I love them. This is a very heartfelt book, talks about love and loss and what it means to say goodbye. So basically you've got Julie and you've got Sam. And Julie and Sam, you get, well, I'll tell you about how it's written in a second, but you've got Julie and Sam Sam has passed away, and Julie wants to call him just to hear his voicemail, or his voice on his voicemail one more time. And when she calls him, Sam picks up the phone. So she has this connection with Sam after he's passed, and she doesn't want to lose that. She's having a hard time dealing with the fact that he's gone, and she is getting to talk to him. So it's kind of one of those things where she's having a hard time letting him go because she still has this connection, but she does know that eventually she will have to say goodbye. I loved the way this was written. I think it has its pros and cons. I think the way that it was written on the one hand was good because you got to see a different way a story was written, because you get flashbacks at the beginning to Julie and Sam's relationship, and then you get present day from where Julie is dealing with the loss. I do think because of that, it's good because it's different, but it's bad because you don't get to really grow with Julie and Sam up until the very end, and then Sam passes. I feel like that would cause more of a heartache and a tearjerk from the reader. For me, I teared up at the end of this, but I didn't like boohoo cry, whereas I feel like I would if I felt more connected to Julie and Sam. But because of the way it was written, like I said, I liked it, but I also felt like there was a disconnect there because I couldn't really get a grip on their relationship just from flashbacks. But I did think it was written really uniquely. I did really like it. I did end up getting invested by the end, and this is a really easy book to read. The writing is really flowy. I really like Dustin Tao's writing, and I hope to read more from him in the future. I guess overall I would give this about a 4-star. I really wish it was a 5-star because I did really love it. I have good feelings associated with it. I always wanted to pick it up when I had it like put down, but it just didn't hit me the way that I wanted it to exactly. I really wanted to like be boohoo crying by the end, but I do think it was a really sweet story, and I think it was a great exploration of grief, and I highly recommend this. If it even at all piques your interest, I think you'll probably really enjoy it. The next book I read was The Stillwater Girls by Minka Kent, and I have been looking forward to reading this all year. I randomly came upon it not too long after I'd watched The Village for the first time because I wanted books that kind of reminded me or gave off the Village vibes, and this definitely did that. Not the whole way through, but at the beginning. So it follows these two sisters, 19-year-old Ren, and she has a sister, well, she technically has two sisters. She has a sister named Sage and a sister named Evie. Sage is her younger sister. I think she's only a year younger, like 17 or 18 maybe. And Sage and, why is this so hard for me to explain? Ren, Sage, and Evie live with their mom out in a cabin in the woods. One day, Evie gets really sick, and the mom has to take Evie to town to get her better. They live kind of secluded from society. Their mom basically has cut them off from the modern world. They don't have electricity. They get their water from a well. It's very like the Village vibes where you kind of don't know what's going on in the outside world. This is all you know. And so I really liked that aspect of it because it did remind me of the Village. And then when Evie, the little girl, and the mom left, they never came back. And so now Sage and Ren are having to survive. Winter's coming, they're running low on supplies, and then a man shows up, and their mom has always told them to be leery of men, to be like leery of like the dangers of the woods, don't go into the forest and all of those things. So the girls get scared and they run off, and then I won't say anything more than that, but they find out the truth behind a lot of things. This was a very, very, very heartbreaking story, and it was very hard-hitting. I wish that it would have been a little bit more so. It was kind of a slow read, but I did really enjoy it. I ended up rating it 4 stars, and I would recommend this. I just wish that it was a little bit quicker. The beginning was really slow, but once, I can't say, like, I guess once they went through the forest, that's when things started to get interesting for me. In the end, like how things kind of played out was really interesting. I think that nothing was really surprising for me. It also says this is a thriller. I would just say this is a mystery. I don't think there's any big twist. I do think there was a twist, but it didn't surprise me very much. But I think overall, this was very well written. It was a very good story. I really enjoyed it, and I want more people to read it because I want to know what you guys think about it too. So 4 stars. If that even minorly piques your interest, please pick it up because I would love to chat with somebody about this. Like I said, it does have village vibes, but it does have some hard-hitting elements as well that are just going to break your heart, but in the best way because it's just so good. Then I read Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney, which I read Sometimes I Lie by Alice Feeney, and I really enjoyed that one. It's one of my favorite books, and the twist in that one just blew my mind. So I was really hoping for the same kind of reaction from this book, but this one only got 4 stars for me, which means it was still really good. I did really enjoy it, but it didn't quite pack the punch as much as Sometimes I Lie did. So Rock, Paper, Scissors is about Mr. and Mrs. Wright, and it's Adam and Amelia, and you follow them as they are kind of struggling in their marriage. Adam has face blindness, so he can't recognize faces, not even his own wife's, which is really scary to think about. Like, you explore it in the book, but he has face blindness, and just kind of wondering how that's going to play into the story should be intriguing enough for you to pick this one up. It is kind of slow paced. It reads fast, but it's kind of slow. If you know what I mean, you know what I mean. But it takes a little bit to get through. But I thought it was really interesting. None of the twists surprised me. And I think part of that, and I'm hesitant to say this, but I think if you've read an Alice Feeney book before, I've only read Sometimes I Lie. So I will say that I think she recycles some of her plot devices a little bit. And I think that's why I wasn't as surprised with this book. So if you are going to read an Alice Feeney for the first time, please read Sometimes I Lie. Let that be your first one. This one is really good too. I would highly recommend it. It was very chilling. It's good for this winter season, good for this time of year. I thought it was pretty good, but like I said, I wanted more of a twist. I think with thrillers nowadays, I'm really wanting the twist. But I have to say, Alice Feeney's writing is really good. I did listen to this on audio as well as physically read it. I thought that both of those were really well done. So I would highly recommend this if you were looking for a good, chilling, mystery, kind of thrilling at some points book. This is a great one to check out. And last but not least, I read The Night Sister by Jennifer McMahon, my favorite author. And I read this with Liv from Liv's Library, who I think is still reading it, but it's okay. And Elizabeth from Ponytails and Paperbacks, and Lauren from Lauren Love Reads. So we all read this together, and we are all much anticipating Liv finishing this book because she loves Jennifer McMahon too. We all love Jennifer McMahon. We call ourselves the unofficial Jennifer McMahon book club, or not book club, fan club, book club, whatever. We love Jennifer McMahon. So if you have not checked her out, I highly recommend reading her books. The Winter People is my favorite, so I partially want to tell you to pick up The Winter People by her, but then I also kind of want you to like lead up to the best book, so maybe start with another one and then end with The Winter People. But The Night Sister falls at a 4-star read for me for Jennifer McMahon. I always love her writing. She just grips you, like from the very beginning. Grips you, the atmosphere, the writing, the characters. It's just so immersive. I don't know how she does it. There's a back and forth timeline in this as well. She does dual timelines so well. But this story follows 3 girls. You've got Amy, Piper, and Piper's sister Margot. And Amy, Piper, and Margot were all best friends, and something happened. So they've got like the Tower Motel, and Amy's mom and her family owned this motel. Her grandfather built it for her grandmother. You've got the tower here on the cover, and it's been in their family for generations. But then something happens in present day with Amy, Piper, and Margot, where they go to the motel and they uncover something that happened all these years ago that has to do with Amy's mom, Rose, and her aunt, Sylvie. So after then, the girls don't really talk anymore. It kind of ruins their friendship. But then all these years later, something happens, and the girls start to kind of reinvestigate this motel and some different things that happened in the past, et cetera, et cetera. So you have that one timeline, and then you jump back to the 1950s where you have Rose, Amy's mom, and Sylvie, her aunt, and you get kind of their story of they each think the other one is a monster, and you're trying to kind of figure out which one's the bad guy in this situation. And you've got some folklore in here as well with some stories that Amy's grandmother tells, and I think it's really interesting. It's different than the other Jennifer McMahon books that I've read, but I thought it was really well done. I was not surprised by the twists in this either. I feel like I'm getting too good with twists, you guys. Like, I need some recommendations for books that will throw me for a loop with the twist. But I did think this was really well done. Like I said, I cannot discount her writing. It's just the best. I don't know. Like, even if I don't fully enjoy a story, or even if I can find flaws, she's a favorite author of mine, and she always will be. And I absolutely love this, and I cannot wait for her next book to come out. So yes, The Night Sister was 4 stars. I'm so glad that I got to read it with my friends and we got to chat about it, because that made it even more fun and extra exciting. So definitely pick up Jennifer McMahon if you haven't done so already. All right, y'all, that is all the books that I read in the month of November. I had a pretty average reading month. I gave out a lot of 4 stars, and I think that's really weird. I feel like this year has been kind of a 4-star year for me, 3 or 4 star, but I did read a lot of books that I really enjoyed. Let me know down in the comments if you have read any of these and what your thoughts were on them. I would love to chat about it. Also, let me know what your favorite, or what a couple of your favorite books that you read in November were, because I'm always looking for new book recommendations. With all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, friends.